What's up everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be a how to set yourself up for success for 2025. I know a lot of us are, it's the Christmas season, so obviously we're enjoying this time, but New Year's is right around the corner. So in order to succeed in the future, we want to plan stuff out now, which is what this YouTube video is going to be all about. So hopefully you guys like this video, and if you do, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll get right into it. So there's 5 steps in total that we're going to go through. Step number 1 is reflect or reflection. So this is basically where you're going to take a look at your entire past year, whether you want to break it down into quarters, that way it's like more easily digestible and easier for you to recall, or if you want to do it all at once. I think it's just really important to always start your goals for the new year by reflecting on how this past year went. So you want to go through the good, the bad, the great, and even maybe the ugly. So for me personally, looking back at this year, I'm gonna look through all the little moments of wins that I had, as well as the moments of less winning that I had that were a little bit more disappointing, and areas that I felt like I could have improved or applied myself a little bit better, and areas that I thought that did really well, and I'm gonna try to figure out why those things happened. So for instance, I really think this year, going through my challenge of prep this year, one, it was challenging because it was one of the hardest years I had, but I do know that looking at it now, reflecting, I know that it brought me out as a more stronger mental athlete. And so for me, that's like a win for this year. And to basically be able to implement what I learned this year into next year is what I'm gonna reflect on, so that way I can be a better athlete going forward. Some things that didn't go as planned is just, I really wanted to go hard on YouTube this year, and just with prep, it just, and my mental state that I was in this past prep, I wasn't able to do that. Not necessarily that it was maybe like a lose or a loss situation, but it was again something where I got to like learn from this scenario and kind of know where I am bandwidth, and I can now reflect on that and then properly plan for next year, so that way my next year's YouTube videos and plans and activities can be more front loaded in the year rather than like at the end of the year. So kind of bringing out more fun type challenge videos at the beginning of the year, or like review videos, or just lifestyle vlogs, stuff like that. I can kind of dive deeper into that beginning of the year versus trying to think to myself, oh, I can like incorporate it all during prep, because that's just something that wasn't gonna work for me. So reflection works both ways in terms of being able to reflect on yourself, but then also reflect on like your surroundings as well. So like me as a person, I can know what I did right, and then also seeing where I put myself in specific scenarios I want to be a part of next year. So I know it sounds like cutthroat going into the new year, being like, oh, like that scenario didn't serve me, so I'm gonna like toss it aside. Never feel guilty about setting yourself a new boundary for the new year, especially after reflecting, because I do think it's really important. In order for you to succeed, you need to be in an environment that provides that kind of, one, comfort for you, but then also just that specific challenge. So I think it's really important to surround yourself with people who are constantly challenging you, checking on you, and then also making sure that they're people who are doing that for themselves as well. So you never want to be in an environment that's like stagnant, because then you'll, by byproduct, also be stagnant. So that's something to also reflect on for the year. And so I typically do this, I'm a very digital person. I would do this more in a written type document, or going through like all my calendar events, my major ones, or even like big emails that I know that came out throughout the year, kind of looking at all those, and then kind of like making almost like a digital timeline for me to be able to work through. And that's how I personally reflect. I do know a lot of other people like to do more like pen to paper, or like a vision board, whichever it may be, whatever works for you, just to be able to like go through the year and sort through your thoughts to be able to set you up for making up your next goals, which is gonna be like step number 2. So step number 2 is like making your goals, but you're gonna break it down. So I do feel like a lot of us like to make these like big umbrella goals of like, I'm gonna be fit next year. And it's like, that's amazing, that's a great goal, but what does fit mean to you? And how you're gonna define that, and how you're gonna keep track of it in order to succeed in those goals. So I like to, again, break my goals to like small goals. So like your daily, weekly, monthly goals, then you also have your quarterly goals, and then your overall like big goals, and then you have like your dreamer goals, which is like your 5-10 year plan. So like my dreamer goal is to be like, say for instance, retired by the age of 40 and living financially free. So that's a great goal to have, but like what am I gonna do over the next couple of years? What I'm gonna do in the next couple of days, weeks, and months in order to put myself in that position to do that? For instance, next year's goal is to, one of my major ones relating to bodybuilding, is to be able to step on that Olympia stage and be proud of what I put on that stage for my routine. What am I doing currently now in order to get there? I've dove like deep into the waters of being able to like improve my movement. So I'm working with a movement coach. I do animal flow, I do Pilates, as well as I do more like kicking and tricking style stuff. So again, getting my body used to moving in different planes. So that way I'm a little bit more of like a flowy athlete and bringing something new to the table next year. I'm also making sure that like everything that I'm doing is relatively on track with where I want to be. So I'm following my reverse diet much closer than I was last year. And I'm also making sure that my level of balance is a lot more than it was last year. I think last year I pinholed myself too much into like, I need to be a bodybuilder, I need to follow this. And that was something that made it actually almost more of a harder space for me to be in. This year I'm like, you know what, bodybuilding is what I'm doing right now, but I'm still able to enjoy other parts of my life. And that's created balance for myself. So making sure that throughout daily, weekly, monthly, yearly stuff, I'm still maintaining balance regardless of what era of bodybuilding I'm in, because that's what brings me happiness. And ultimately being happy throughout the year is also like one of my very most important goals, because I just felt that last year I spent too much time being a little bit less happy. So I'm really prioritizing my own mental health this year and being able to like draw a line and make sure that I'm hitting all my pillars of fulfillment and happiness and all that really good stuff. And in terms of like business goals, one of my business goals is obviously to keep on growing on social media. One of my things, like I tell everybody, is when you make social media content, you always want to make sure that you like it first. And I do feel like sometimes I feel pressure from like the TikTok trends or the seeing what other fitness people are creating, like what's like very saturated. I almost feel pressure to do that. And so I always have to constantly remind myself when I break down my content and break down what I plan to post and what I'm wanting to post, it's always stuff that makes me happy and things that I resonate really closely with. So again, we can get overwhelmed with like, oh, I want to grow a social media account. But it's like, how are you going to do that? And what way do you want to do that? And so I think that's really important to go through when you are doing your goal setting. Step number 3 is to check yourself. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean like be hard on yourself. Checking yourself just means like checking in with how you're doing throughout your goal setting process. Like, or not even just your goal setting process, but like in terms of where you are now to where your goals are like going. So obviously if we dream something like completely unrealistic, like I'm gonna become an astronaut, that's probably not gonna happen because I've done nothing to work towards that. So checking yourself really just means that like you're setting realistic goals for yourself where they don't become too like out of scope, where it feels almost like, you know, those goals that you set where it's just like completely unreasonable, and it's like you either get really frustrated with those goals and then you end up giving up, or it just seems so unreasonable that you just like kind of like forget about them and you're like, oh, like I'm not gonna get there anyways. So just check yourself with your goals and making sure that they actually align with where you want to go, what you've been doing, and reasonable practices in order for you to get there. And throughout the year, still practice that as well. So even if you set a goal in January, if you change your mind in like June or whatever, like that's when you can kind of check in with yourself, being like, okay, like, is this something that I really want to be pursuing? Is this something that I really want to be doing? Or do I want to be putting my energy somewhere else? And that's your opportunity to kind of like reassess and kind of go through all these steps over again. So I would say checking yourself just kind of means like making sure that you're still on the trajectory of where you're wanting to go, like you're still on that track and you're still motivated to get there, because there is no shame and there is no embarrassment if you're ever like, oh, I set a goal and I've now completely changed my mind. You're totally allowed to do that. And I think a lot of people make you feel like, no, like you said you're gonna do this, like, do what you say you're gonna say, which I think it holds some value, but like when it comes to your own specific goals, especially business and personal, you are allowed to change your mind, and just to like, you know, give yourself that grace to just be like, is this really what I want to be doing? Because I do know throughout my years of fitness, throughout my years of business, I've wanted to go different ways. When I first started in fitness, my goal was to open my own gym. Checked myself, I no longer want to do that. Or originally I wanted to like go into like powerlifting, and then that just didn't become a goal for myself anymore. And it's not that I'm like, oh my gosh, like how could I ever speak into the world that I want to do powerlifting, and shame on me, I never did it. It's just, it's not that time right now. And I can come back to it another time. So your goals can always be resituated in your lifespan, and it doesn't have to be like concrete. So that's just what check yourself means to me. And then step number 4 is visualize it. So seeing your goals or speaking your goals to yourself is really important. It's kind of the same idea of like manifestation. Like you really do have to believe in yourself that you are able to do these things. So I know vision boards are a really big thing. Journaling, again, talking to your friends. My mom once was telling me that the reason why sometimes when you like dream of something and like for some reason, say if it doesn't happen, the reason why I can feel like almost like heartbreak or like it feels real that you didn't get there is because the more you like speak about something and the more you like talk about it, the more your brain, like your brain chemistry or whichever it is, makes you feel like as if it's like real and happening. So like that's so important. So if you believe you're gonna win this or you're gonna like bring your business to there, like I firmly believe I know I'm gonna get my YouTube to 500K this year. Like I just know it. And I just keep on telling myself that, and I write it down and I just remind myself. And when people ask me like what are my goals, it's like one of the first things I say. And so for me to constantly be saying that stuff is just like reaffirming to myself that I will get to that 500K mark, that it's something that I do want to do. And it just like, you visualize it, you speak it to yourself, and like those things will come true. Yes, there's hard work behind it, but I do think that's like something that I learned this year. I used to kind of look at that stuff and be like, oh, like manifestation is like whatever, but it really does. What you put out in the world and the energy that you put out into the world really does return to you. So if you're gonna be constantly doubting yourself, and that's the energy you're putting out, and that's definitely not the energy that you want coming back to you. You wanna be putting out energy of like fully believing in yourself, knowing that you can accomplish what you set your mind to, and that the things that you know that you are working towards, that you're deserving of it and it'll come back to you. So that is super important, something that like resonates with me super heavy this year, because I just realized how important it was. For example, I kept on saying, and I was like so anxious. Like, I'm so anxious for my Olympia routine. I like, you know, I just don't know how it's gonna go. And when people say, oh no, like you're gonna do it great, like they were giving me the energy of like, it's gonna be amazing, we believe in you, it's gonna be great. And instead of me taking that and believing in myself, I always replied with the answer of like, oh well, like you never know what's gonna happen. Like you could mess up, you never know. And what did the world give back to me after I gave out that kind of energy was I did end up messing up. That scenario in my head that I believed in and kept on like, one, saying to myself over in my head and then saying out loud to other people is what came back to me. So I do think in retrospect, if I had been like, yeah, you're right, like it's gonna go perfect, it's gonna go smoothly, I do think naturally I would have performed better. Again, the energy that you put out is what's returned. And I think if I was a little bit more positive, there would have been a little bit more of a positive outcome for me for that specific instance. So that's just something that I wanna like that's like an example pretty much of like what it really means to like visualize it, see it, and speak it to yourself. And then lastly, step number 5 is to just send it. I know it seems so crazy, like, but you see all those like big brands like Nike's is like, just do it. You know, it seems so simple. And when you tell someone just like, yeah, just like do your goals, just send it, just do it. And people are like, oh, it's not that easy. It's like, no, but it is, just do it. And I know it sounds like kind of like, oh, how could you, it's easy for you to say. But at the end of the day, these little excuses of like, oh, like, you know what, like I'm gonna start next week. Like next week will be better because the stars are gonna be brighter next week. I'm gonna do it next week. It's like all these little tiny excuses that we give ourselves, but realistically, all we need to do is just switch that like on switch in our brain and just like full send towards your goals. And like, yes, it's scary, but like realistically, there's like all those cheesy quotes where it's like, oh, if you think going after your dreams is scary, like what's actually scary is like you being stuck in the same place for another year. There is no such thing as failure when it comes to going towards your goals. Like at least you're going for them. Like it says a lot more about you as a person and speaks volumes about you if you're someone who's like putting yourself out there, taking the risk, like doing the work versus someone who's like, oh, like next year's my year, I'm gonna do it next year. In terms of just your mentality, you just have to just fully step into this like abyss of like unknown with like confidence that you have done the work, the knowledge, the research, whatever it may be, and you're ready to keep doing all those things in order to reach your goals. And like regardless of what happens, you're gonna win in some way or another and you're gonna achieve your goals. That is my 5 tips for success and just like setting yourself up right for 2025. And like obviously each person's different. Again, I'm very digital with mine, but again, you can do them any which way. Like maybe you wanna have like one person that you always confide in. Like I have a couple friends that I handpick where I tell like my big goals. And for me personally, it's been something where I'm a little bit more timid because I don't like sharing my big goals. Cause again, it's like that like, ooh, like I'm scared. Now that I know how this past year went, I'm stepping into this new year, making it one of my goals of like speaking what I believe into existence and telling more people. So that way it can be like a bigger celebration once it all happens, because I know it's gonna happen at one point or another. So if you guys have any questions, drop them below. But also if you guys comment either like some of the goals that you have for 2025 or some of your favorite tips for setting goals, you guys will be entered into a giveaway of like a little starter goal setting package that I'll be sending out to one of you as like one of the giveaway prizes that I'm doing during Vlogmas. And then I'll be picking it at the end of Vlogmas and then contacting the winners. That way I can ship it off to you guys as like a nice little starter pack for your 2025 goals. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and we'll see you guys for the next vlog.